A time comes in the life of every race when people are driven by echoes of the past to chart a course for an exalted future. Africa is at this threshold, as major actors in the Africa arena plot a renaissance towards common destiny. Let's pedal across the streams of yesterday, from the backstreets of Africa to the defining roles of policymakers, the political realities of the African nation, balance of power, and the strive to sustain national interest and identity. Join us on Network Africa on Channels Television. Network Africa, the rallying point for the emergence of a new Africa.
This week on Network Africa, it's all about unity, crisis resolution, presidential ambitions, and changing the notion that it's a man's world. Right here in Nigeria, delegates to the national conference seem to be making progress as members call for a new mindset and approach to ensure that the task of creating a new Nigeria is accomplished.
You could have women being marginalized, you could have the youth being marginalized because you're all acting independently. I mean, I thought we want to find a solution to the problems of this country and not to be doing this.
Then killings in Egypt continue after election dates are announced. Plus, African and EU leaders meet in Brussels to find a solution to the crisis in the Central African Republic.
Only thing keeping them from being killed right now is the presence of the French troops and the MISCA. And the tensions are such that it's just impossible for them to leave. They themselves are asking us to take them out of there, to evacuate them.
And who says it's a man's world? Women are stepping up and getting involved in jobs which were supposed to be for males only. Welcome to this week's edition of Network Africa with me, Cynthia Are. As always, let's start things off at home in Nigeria. Delegates to the national conference seem to be making progress as members call for a new mindset and approach to ensure that the task of creating a new Nigeria is accomplished. This was a major position that was put forward by the delegates as they continued discussions of the inauguration speech of President Goodluck Jonathan. Our correspondent Larry Lasisi has this report.
After the minutes of the last plenary was adopted, the deputy chairman moved on to the report of the consultative meeting convened to help resolve the stalemate on the voting modality to be adopted for the conference.
In the case of failure to reach consensus, the matter shall be decided by majority vote of 70% of delegates present and voting.
The issue was immediately adopted and put to a vote.
All those in favor of the motion moved say aye. Aye. All those against say nay. The ayes have it.
A slight debate came up when a motion was moved to have delegates rescind an earlier decision to have delegates in committees pick their chairman and deputy chairman.
You may then end up in a situation where 10 committees acting independently will appoint chairmen from the same zone, and then the problem will end up here. You could have women being marginalized, you could have the youth being marginalized because you're all acting independently. I mean, I thought we want to find a solution to the problems of this country and not to be doing this. Thank you. May Lord.
With an air of urgency, the delegates moved quickly to attend to other matters on the other paper. The work plan for the conference and the proposed committee structure was adopted with a few observations.
I mean, consulting with the chairman and the secretary, I think we have to go to government to see whether they give us more money for us to rent more committee rooms. This is what has led. It's not that we are not aware that we have put so many things together. We just wanted to make sure we didn't put incompatible subjects together. We realize, the points you've made. If the government gives us more funds, we will rent more committee rooms so we can break some of this.
I would like to suggest the Secretariat should, as much as possible, have the committees remain at 20, reduce some committees, merge some committees so that You don't ask government to give more money on this issue.
The conference then adjourned for lunch. Delegates had different views on the resolution reached on the voting modality for the conference and the way the day's session had progressed.
That 50 wise men and women appointed by the chairman to look into the two-third or three-third or even consensus, they saved this conference, honestly.
You have seen how we resolve the issue. In fact, I can say with consensus. I'm telling you, this conference is going to take all issues on consensus. There will be no rancor. We're going to work for Nigeria, Nigerian unity, Nigerian progress, Nigerian development.
I have mixed feelings, but I think the best approach would have been to split what you require 70% for and what you require simple majority for. That's the law of meetings anywhere in the world. It is not, you don't have one voting criteria for all issues.
In the Nigerian usual way, we've dodged the issue, we've given an appearance of resolution. I know that the very issue will still come back to it, but we've merely postponed the evil day.
All those arguments, counter-arguments, were aimed at laying down the solid foundation. And now that the solid foundation has been laid, you can see that movement is progressive.
After the break, it was straight to the issues raised in the speech by President Goodluck Jonathan while inaugurating the conference.
We can only experience peace, unity and progress once elites stop seeing their personal loss as that of their tribe, indigenous, regional and religion. Mr. Chairman, sir, I hope and pray that that is why we are here and will do justice to it, sir.
Now, the violence in the Central African Republic has escalated to the point that African and European leaders tried to resolve the matter during a special meeting on the sidelines of a summit in Brussels on Wednesday, the 2nd of April. The European Union has officially launched its military mission to the CAR, unveiling plans to send 1,000 troops to bolster African and French forces. The sectarian violence is so bad that the UN has warned that 19,000 Muslims face slaughter in the CAR.
The EU had initially hoped troops would start arriving by the end of February, but shortages of soldiers and equipment were behind delays, eventually overcome thanks to last-minute offers of help from EU governments. French and African Union peacekeepers have so far failed to stop the conflict that erupted after the mostly Muslim Seleka rebels seized power a year ago in the majority Christian state. Operating out of the capital Bangui, the force of up to 1,000 soldiers will bolster 6,000 African and 2,000 French troops struggling to stop the violence in the landlocked, impoverished country that has left thousands dead. Samba Panza told reporters after talks with Hollande that whilst the country had received pledges of support from the international community, procedure had held up real action.
We've received many pledges, lots of announcements. We have confidence in the commitments made by our partners, but it's just as there are procedures which also have to be respected. We're simply asking the international community to lighten these procedures and not to treat the Central African Republic's problems as if it were a normal country, but as a country in crisis.
In Geneva, the UNHCR is trying to evacuate 19,000 Muslims urgently from Bangui and other parts of CAR, who are surrounded by anti-Balaka Christian militia threatening their lives. Anti-Balaka forces control major routes to and from Bangui, as well as many towns and villages in the southwest.
Anti-Balaka forces control major routes to and from Bangui, as well as many towns and villages in the southwestern part of CAR. They pose a threat to Muslims, in particular in the Pt1 neighborhood of Bangui, in Boda, Karno, and Berberati to the west of Bangui, and in Bosangoa further north. We fear for the lives of 19,000 Muslims in those locations. UNHCR stands ready to assist with their evacuation to safer areas both within and outside of the country.
The militia has become more militarized as it steps up attacks on Muslims and African Union peacekeepers.
Only thing keeping them from being killed right now is the presence of the French troops and the MISCA. And the tensions are such that it's just impossible for them to leave. They themselves are asking us to take them out of there, to evacuate them.
Mainly Muslim Seleka rebels seized power a year ago, perpetrating abuses on the majority Christian population that triggered waves of revenge attacks, leading to thousands of deaths and displacing hundreds of thousands of people.
Let's take a moment to find out what the humanitarian situation is like.
The humanitarian situation in CAR, it's still very, very bad. You know, since many years, and especially since the end of last, the humanitarian situation, it's what we can call a crisis situation. People, they live in fear. People, they are facing killings, sexual violence. So it's very, very difficult for almost people living here in Central African Republic.
Basically, we understand the international community is trying their best to do what they can to save the CAR from what it's becoming. But since you work with the International Red Cross and you've had a chance to interact with some of the victims and the people of CAR, what is it exactly that they want? What do you think, in their opinion, is the way forward?
Absolutely. In fact, it's very important nowadays for the international community to react, to help people here in Central African Republic. Because, you know, the state, it doesn't work. The most important services, they don't work. So national authorities, they can't enable to face the situation in terms of economy, in terms of social situation, to face the humanitarian situation, which is very, very difficult for the population. So I think, according to our analysis, it's very important for the international community and also for humanitarian organizations to bring not only humanitarian assistance, which is very important nowadays, it's security. What people they need here in Central African Republic is security. Because if there is security, it can be possible for them to face and to have solutions for humanitarian problems. Yeah, that's a good question. You know, last month, staff for RCRC was killed in Ndele. Here in Bangui, another staff, a volunteer for the Central African Red Cross, was also killed. So the insecurity, it affects not only the population, but also the humanitarian workers. It's very, very challenging also for humanitarian organizations such International Committee of the Red Cross. So what we do is to ensure that we have contact, we have dialogue, bilateral dialogue with all parties involved in the conflict, national authorities, leaders of armed groups, and also the multinational the forces like MISCA, the Sangari force from French. So that's what we do, and for us it's very important to keep in touch with all parties involved in the conflict so that we can assure that the security of our staff can be guaranteed, and also we can have access to those who need our assistance.
Now, after the break on Network Africa, election dates are announced for the Egyptian presidential elections, but the violence continues. Join me in a bit for the details after the break.